Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Fair Share Podcast. My name is Jeffrey. I'm just continuing from my introduction video where I mentioned I have a keen interest in various stocks from various different sectors. But the term various can be used to define a whole lot of things. What is various and where does it stop? Where do you stop with your various, if that makes any sense? But what is important with investment is to ensure that you have enthusiasm or enough interest in the sectors that you are invested in. Quite often on YouTube or in other social media platforms or just the internet in general is that you can also be caught out by the wealth or be bombarded with a whole plethora of information that can throw you off at times. So what you'll find a lot of people do is they will invest in companies strictly because they were recommended by a particular person or they had a feeling that this company was going to do well, etc. But not looking at the fundamentals. Why am I investing in this company? What makes this company any different from its competitors? What are some of the underlying features of this particular asset? And what are the future goals, etc. And as well as the financial aspect of the company that I'm investing in. So these are some of the questions that we have to ask ourselves. I suppose more seasoned investors tend to ask themselves or ask ourselves. And you don't want to get caught out in what you call is the fear of missing out. So firstly, I'm going to talk about the definition of diversification, and it is the management strategy that blends different investments into one portfolio. And the idea behind diversification is to create a higher return, and in doing so, to create a lower risk to your portfolio. Because what you don't want is to have too many companies, if not one company that you've solely put your money in. Because we all know the dangers of that. You can end up losing a whole pot of money. Now, these are fundamental things you can say, but these are some of the risks people are willing to take as well. Recently, I watched a video by a billionaire called Mark Cuban, and I beg to differ with what he said. He said he didn't believe in diversification, that you should put all your money into one stock. I mean, you can take from it as you will, but in my opinion, I don't think that's the best advice. However, to each his own. But then when you speak to people like Warren Buffett, he believes in the concept of concentrated diversification. And this is what I want to talk about. Concentrated diversification, by its definition, is simply investing in a few companies, so maybe 4 to 6 companies in your portfolio, and not exposing yourself to one particular sector. So for instance, if you want to invest in the EV, electronic vehicle sector, you don't invest in 4 different EV companies or 5 different EV companies. You know, the general rule of thumb is to invest in 2 companies per sector. And making sure that you have no more than 6 companies, if you can, within your portfolio, especially if you're a beginner investor. But if you're a beginner investor, I would say you should go through what you call the ETF. But we'll get to that in another video where I will discuss ETFs. Just to touch on over diversification, what you'll find is when people over diversify, they have very little knowledge in most of the companies they diversify in. So for instance, you may have 20 companies in your portfolio and you may only have knowledge in maybe 4 companies, and the other 16 companies that you've invested in, you have very little knowledge in those companies. And what you'll find is this can affect your return on investment or your yield going forward. And I don't think it makes sense to have that many companies in your portfolio when only 4 or 5 of them are performing well. Absolutely, it doesn't make sense. So in narrowing down your portfolio, you'll find that you will get a better yield and you have a better understanding of the stocks, and they're much easier for you to follow because you don't want to overexpose yourself to certain sectors. So that's just a general rule of thumb, and it's not that I have anything specific to talk about, but this is just a generic understanding or a general understanding of diversification and why you should avoid the potential pitfalls in falling into those traps. Investing in itself, as I mentioned earlier, is risky. And we get into the market as investors because of the volatility, because we want to beat the banks, generally speaking, or we want to get greater returns within a shorter period of time or in a longer period of time, depending on what your investment strategy is. The stock market, generally speaking, is not your friend. And with technology always improving, things can always change at the click of a finger. So I think it's very important that people understand that you need to diversify to prevent yourself falling into certain traps and not falling in love too much with a particular stock. Because all it takes is one competitor to have a particular feature, and that could be the end of your run. And it does happen, even to the best, even to the most seasoned investors. They will find that they no longer have the same amount they had at some point, or things have significantly changed due to an upturn in the market, particularly in this day and age where you have COVID-19, where there has been a contraction in the economy, which, even though I do believe we're going to come out of this very soon, you don't want to be overexposed to certain markets, for instance. So just to sum up in a nutshell, going forward in this video, I'll be talking about the sectors that I've specifically have vested interest in, that I've invested in rather, and how much time and how much effort I take into looking at what's going on in these particular markets. And I'll be going into detail as to why I believe in the esports mining sector, more specifically potash, and the electronic vehicle sector. And I suggest you subscribe, please. Follow me on Instagram. And I'm definitely going to have a lot more videos going forward. So much appreciated. Thanks.